The guns of the Great War finally fell silent in 1918, but peace brought profound ruin. Germany, once a proud empire, was crippled by defeat and crushing economic debt. The Treaty of Versailles was not a treaty of peace, but a humiliation, breeding resentment. A fragile democratic experiment, the Weimar Republic, struggled against violent political extremes. Hyperinflation rendered the national currency worthless. Citizens watched their savings vanish. Food lines stretched endlessly. Hope evaporated, replaced by gnawing hunger and despair. The memory of stability was gone. People longed for order, for strength, for a savior. Into this chaotic void stepped a figure waiting on the fringes, Adolf Hitler. He was an obscure corporal, wounded by war and obsessed with national vengeance. He identified the pain of the German people and found his voice, a voice of fury. The year 1919 marked his entry into the German Workers' Party, the core of the future NSAP. Hitler quickly discovered his singular talent, the mesmerizing power of public speaking. His oratory was a weapon, channeling collective despair into focused blame and hatred. He offered simple answers to complex problems, scapegoating minorities and foreign powers. His rhetoric promised a return to greatness, fueled by aggressive, militant nationalism. The party grew, bolstered by the Sturmabteilung, the violent paramilitary wing, the SA. By 1923, Hitler felt strong enough to attempt a coup, the infamous Beer Hall Putsch. The coup failed spectacularly. Hitler was arrested, convicted of treason, and imprisoned. This setback proved vital. He realized force alone would not secure control. In prison, he dictated Mein Kampf, outlining his racial theories and blueprint for domination. Upon release, Hitler shifted strategy. He would destroy democracy using democratic means. The party became meticulous, organizing nationwide, focusing on winning legal elections. But it was the next global crisis that truly opened the door to ultimate power. The Great Depression hit Germany devastatingly hard. Millions lost their jobs overnight. Political polarization intensified. Centrist parties collapsed under the strain. The Nazis capitalized on the failure of mainstream politicians to solve the economic mess. Hitler's campaign was modern and aggressive, utilizing planes and mass media. Rallies were meticulously staged spectacles of light, sound, and disciplined fervor. Propaganda chief Joseph Goebbels mastered the art of mass psychological manipulation. They promised bread and work, exploiting primal economic anxieties. The party's success climbed steadily in every election, dominating public discourse. Many conservatives believed they could control Hitler, using him as a temporary tool. They misjudged the depth of his ambition and the totality of his vision. In January 1933, those backroom deals culminated in the inevitable. President Paul von Hindenburg, reluctantly, appointed Adolf Hitler Chancellor of Germany. The dictatorship was not instantaneous. It was constructed methodically, piece by piece. The first step was to dismantle the legal framework of the Weimar Constitution. Less than a month later, the Reichstag building was set ablaze. Hitler immediately blamed communists, seizing the crisis to justify extreme measures. The decree for the protection of people and state suspended civil liberties overnight. Freedom of speech, assembly, and the press were instantly revoked. Political opponents were rounded up and sent to newly established concentration camps. The final nail in the coffin was the Enabling Act of March 1933. This act effectively allowed the cabinet, led by Hitler, to pass laws without parliament. Democracy was dead. The Third Reich began its reign of absolute power. Within months, all other political parties and trade unions were banned. But Hitler needed to consolidate power even within his own volatile movement. The large, powerful SA, led by Ernst Röhm, had become a political liability. In June 1934, Hitler ordered the Night of the Long Knives. Rome and hundreds of SA leaders were summarily executed by the rising SS. Hitler successfully crushed all potential internal rivals, cementing his total command. When President Hindenburg died that August, Hitler merged the offices. He became the Führer, supreme leader of the German people and the German state. Every soldier, every civil servant, swore a personal oath of allegiance to him. The Führerprinzip, the leadership principle, demanded unquestioning loyalty and obedience. The regime controlled the flow of information through pervasive propaganda and censorship. Goebbels ensured that every aspect of culture served the Nazi ideology. Books deemed un-German were publicly burned in massive, ritualistic bonfires. Education was poisoned, rewritten to teach racial superiority and blind adoration. Youth organizations, like the Hitler Youth, indoctrinated children from an early age. They were trained to be ruthless, physically fit, and utterly subservient to the state. The vast network of the Gestapo monitored the population for any sign of dissent. Neighbors were encouraged to denounce neighbors, dissolving the trust of community life. The state used fear as its primary tool of compliance and control. The ideology placed the Aryan race at the pinnacle of human existence. All others, especially Jewish people, were deemed pollutants that must be removed. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 legally stripped Jewish citizens of their rights and citizenship. Marriage and sexual relations between Jews and non-Jews were strictly forbidden. Jewish businesses were boycotted, marked, and systematically seized by the state. The goal was the total isolation and forced emigration of the Jewish population. The dictatorship channeled the nation's energy into military rearmament. This violated the Treaty of Versailles, but Europe remained passive and appeasing. In 1936, German troops marched into the demilitarized Rhineland without opposition. Hitler became increasingly confident. Each successful gamble fueled the next aggression. The world saw the Berlin Olympics in 1936, a massive propaganda show of strength. By 1938, Hitler targeted Austria, his birthplace, demanding Anschluss, unification. Austria was annexed swiftly, consolidating a unified Greater German Reich. Next, the dictator demanded the Sudetenland, a German-speaking region of Czechoslovakia. The Munich Agreement handed Hitler the land, buying peace in our time. Hitler viewed the Western democracy's appeasement as weakness, not wisdom. He knew war was inevitable. He simply needed time to prepare his final strike. In August 1939, Hitler shocked the world by signing a pact with the Soviet Union. This non-aggression pact secured his eastern flank, preparing for invasion. On September 1, 1939, German forces streamed across the Polish border. World War II had begun, the catastrophic fulfillment of the dictator's ambition. The attack was launched using blitzkrieg, lightning war, swift motorized assaults. Poland fell quickly under the combined onslaught of Germany and the Soviet Union. A period known as the Phony War followed, a deceptive lull before the storm. In spring 1940, the storm broke. Hitler invaded Norway and Denmark. Then Germany bypassed the Maginot Line, smashing through the Netherlands and Belgium. The British Expeditionary Force was trapped and evacuated at Dunkirk. In June 1940, Paris fell. France was defeated in a matter of weeks. Hitler stood at the height of his power, master of continental Europe. Only Britain, led by Churchill, remained defiant, isolated but unbowed. The Battle of Britain saw the Luftwaffe attempt to bomb the island into submission. The British Royal Air Force held firm, marking Hitler's first major military failure. Driven by ideology and the search for Lebensraum, living space, Hitler turned east. Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, began in June 1941. It was the largest land invasion in history, designed to crush communism and racial enemies. Initial victories were stunning, but the deep Russian territory proved a fatal trap. The brutal Russian winter set in, freezing the German advance outside Moscow. Meanwhile, the systematic extermination of those deemed undesirable intensified. The final solution was implemented, industrializing mass murder in death camps. Millions of Jews, Roma, Slavs, and political dissidents were victims of the genocide. In 1942, the tide began to turn with the pivotal Battle of Stalingrad. The dictator refused retreat, sacrificing his own troops for ideological rigidity. In the West, Allied landings in North Africa and Italy opened new fronts. June 6, 1944. D-Day. Allied forces landed in Normandy, accelerating the final push. Germany itself was subjected to devastating, round-the-clock bombing campaigns. The once Grand Reich was reduced to rubble and desperation. Hitler retreated to his subterranean bunker beneath the ravaged city of Berlin. He issued increasingly delusional orders to armies that no longer existed. His lieutenants began to abandon him, sensing the imminent, terrible end. On April 30, 1945, with Soviet troops meters away, Hitler committed suicide. The dictator who craved immortal glory vanished in a puff of smoke and gasoline. Germany surrendered unconditionally 1 week later. Europe was finally free. The cost of this dictatorship? 50 million lives and the moral bankruptcy of a continent. History stands as a stern warning. Power built on hate always ends in ruin.